All right, ready to get started?
So they can look at how 666 member.
You don't always wear your name.
All right, how's everybody doing? Good. We're glad you're here. We've got our informer guru that is willing to do this training session. We've had a lot of requests. We do have some people that are sitting at their desk watching. So for informer, I myself is included in that group. Know a little bit about informer, but I'm hoping to learn a lot more. I feel like it can make my job easier. So the goal for today is for you to walk away with things that you can implement in your daily, job duties. But also feel free. Monty's going to have some time at the end. I know that you may use informer in different capacities depending on your job function. So you'll have a chance to ask him questions at the end, and hopefully he'll be able to provide you with some information. This is a beginner class, so it's about learning how to build the forms and the reports in Informer. If you have more in-depth questions, we may look at doing an additional training session for some advanced level Informer reporting. But today, like I said, he's going to do more of a basic overview. But feel free to ask questions when he's ready, and we are live streaming to Harnett and to Pittsburgh, so you are being recorded. Remember that, and this will be available on Blackboard probably by the 1st of next week. So if anyone that wanted to come that couldn't make it, let them know that it'll be up on the Blackboard site. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Monty, and he's going to teach us all about Informer.
Thank you. As Dacia said, my name is Monty Christman, Associate Director of IT. Informer, give you a background, Informer, and there were some side conversations about it. Colleague, or also known as DataTel, is an interface for its database, and it is a massive database. There's a lot of data in there. Informer is the reporting tool for that. It lets us pull out whatever information we need out of it, and it's very user-friendly, very intuitive. To get to Informer, just open up a browser. For Informer access, you do have to be within the college network, so you can't log in directly from home. You do have to be within our college network. But you open up a browser, go to informer.cccc.edu. Also on the intranet, there's a link to it. So if you can't remember the site name or how to spell Informer, you can just get over to the intranet and link from there. The username and password are going to be the same as your computer email account. We've got several different sites that all use that same account, so that when you change your password, it's reflected on all of them. Informer is part of that group. The difference that confuses a lot of people, email is kind of unique that you have to put at cccc.edu. None of the other ones require that. So with Informer, it's just that first part. And then your password. So, to speed things up, I went ahead and logged in early. Once you log in, you'll be at this main reports screen, and you may see some extra buttons just because of the account that I've got. Over on the side, the left-hand side, you'll see different filters and tags. If you've got a lot of reports, this can help you quickly navigate to different reports. For example, I've got a tag named Monty, and it lets me add that tag to any of the reports that I do and quickly pull all of them up. Over on the left-hand side where the filters is, it will tell you how many reports. If you're not seeing all of your reports there, for whatever reason, it may be because a filter is turned on. Oftentimes it will remember your filter. Even if you log out and log back in, it remembers the last filter you were looking at and applies it. So you might just log in and expect to see all of your reports, and something may look missing. Check over here. If you need, press the clear filter button, and that will get rid of all the filters and show you all of the reports you have access to. Some of the reports that you'll end up seeing will be public reports. They're ones that somebody has shared with everybody who has Informer access, for good or bad. Sometimes they're frustrating, but the benefit of that is, especially for the instructors, the originator doesn't have to share it with every person. They just make it a public report and it's available to anyone. And we'll go more into that in a little bit. The main portion here is going to be your report listing and several different items. It'll let you know who created it. Oh yeah, I forgot that stuff.
Yeah.
Do that every time. Let you know who created it, when you last ran it. The last executed can be a little bit misleading sometimes. So here I've got a report that it says has never been run. That means that I have never run it. Somebody else may have run that report and they'll have their own last executed date there. This is when you last ran that report. It also lets you add a favorite to a report. So if you've got reports that you go into quite a bit, you can click on the star here under favorite and it will let you add that to your favorite list. And over here in your filters, we've got my favorites. So you can quickly get to several reports. So I've got 14 favorites. So I can quickly get to those. There's a quick launch button. So if you've got a report, it's already been built, you just want to run it, you can click on the launch button and that gets you right to the running stage. To edit a report, you can either click on details or the name of the report. They'll both take you to that edit screen. Any questions so far? Just a quick overview of that main screen. When you want to create a new report, in the top right-hand corner, you've got New Report. Now to create a report, you have to be set up as a report creator by default. Everybody is set up as just a general user that can run reports. Just ask your supervisor to send me an email and we can get you set up to be able to create reports if you're not set up already. So we want a new Informer report. And we're going to give it a name. The data source that you want to use will be CIS. Unless you've been told otherwise, the test is the test account. So there may be some people that are working in the test account. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. But generally, you'll be in the CIS database. Right under that, you have to tell what file the report's going to be based out of. I'm going to use course.sections.
Monty, question here.
Yes.
Is there descriptions for what information is listed in those sections?
Not really, unfortunately. You mean the different files that it listed?
No.
Not that I know of. And the files and where data lives is a question we get asked a lot. Some of it we've learned where different data lives. For the most part, we're not sure. In IT, we know more the server side and the back end side than the data and the workflows. There's far too much to Datatel to know every piece of it for us. Each area is kind of responsible for their own different workflows. So when it comes to the data, we can try and help with some of that. Often, the best way that I've found is ask your peers, either at other colleges or if they're not sure, your subject matter expert from the system office, your SME, and they should know.
Those equivalent to like tables in the database?
Yes.
That they are. So there's no overall table map or database structure map?
There are some, and I thought about bringing a couple of them with me. They are unpleasant to look at.
They usually are.
There's thousands of files in the database, and not all of them are used because it's not a system that was built for us. It has student housing and meal plans and things like that that we don't use.
Right.
But the files and all the fields are still out there. So unfortunately, it's very complex and it's kind of hit and miss what data is actually used. And even sometimes within the community college system, different colleges will use different features. So whereas one college may have data in a certain field, we may not, or we may have data in a field that somebody else doesn't. So that's unfortunately the most frustrating, the most frustrating piece of building a report is trying to figure out where the data lives. And sometimes it's just a matter of trial and error. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
When you launch it, does it automatically go to like an Excel sheet or any of them?
No, it'll bring it up in here, and we'll run some reports to look and see how it shows, and then there's a way to export it out. And there's some other ways that we can automate it to get it to send an email, things like that. So if you did want to receive something, and I'll go over that as well. So description, it's not required field. You can enter in whatever you want. And then the tags that I was telling you about before. Tags used to be, you used to be able to select or create a new tag right from here. You just type in a name. They changed that a few patches ago. And unfortunately, I think I'm the only one that can now create those. I don't know why they changed it. Maybe other places were abusing that. I don't know. But if you want a tag created, just let me know the name of the tag and I can put it in. And again, the tag is optional. You don't have to put anything in. It just helps you quickly find something. So we hit next, and we're at the report edit screen. There's a few different areas here. Again, we've got some of the data that we already put in, the description, the title, the mapping, the data source. So if you click on any of these, it will let you edit them if it's your report. If it's somebody else's report that you have shared with you, you can't go and make changes to their report. You used to be able to, and we learned the hard way that that was a bad idea. People would accidentally change somebody else's report that maybe everybody had access to, and all of a sudden it was broken for everybody, or it was not good, so we had to change that. Once we're in here, there's really three different areas I want to talk about. Select filter, columns, and sharing. Sharing's easy enough, that's fairly self-explanatory. but I'll jump into that real quick. There's 3 different types of sharing. Private, which means you have access to it. Public, everybody has access to it. Please don't use that one unless you need to. And available only to groups and users. It will show up as protected when you go back out if you have that set. But that lets you be more specific about who you want to have access to that report. So I could say, she's my guinea pig since she's in here. So I can pull up a user. We have some groups set up in here. Not all departments are set up, but this was by request. So informer business office, I would share with everyone in the business office. I think financial aid, we've got a group set up. Business office, obviously, there's a handful of them. And if you do decide that you want a group set up, let me know.
What about sharing with people outside of the college?
No, you have to have one of our accounts in order to access the system. And it has to be from within the college. So the only way to share something with somebody else would be to run a report, get the export data, and send it to them.
What if they're asking for, we had a community college, another HR office asking for what we're using for ACA reporting, and they asked for the query that we're running.
There's a way to, as of a couple versions ago, there's a way to package an entire report and share that with other colleges. Just let me know. It's kind of a rare request, but if it comes up, let me know and I can help you with that. And it's pretty quick to package that up.
Okay.
It's a really small file. You just email it to them and then their IT department can import it in and it adds the report and anything you've got set up.
Okay.
Really great feature. I love that they added that in. All right, so the other 2 are select filter and column. Select filter is going to be how you want to filter down the list. We've told it course.sections, which is every section that we've put into the system since we started in on this system. Sue, that's a lot, right?
It is.
So we probably don't want everything. So we want to filter that down. We may only want to look for sections for a certain term or sections for this building. So we may want to filter that down. So this is where we would go to do that. We've got our different methods over here. And you can either click to add one in, or you can drag it. You can drag these around to reorder them as well. So the first one is simple condition. And it's like it says, it's a simple condition. Select a property, which is one of the file or one of the fields within that file. So within course.section, these are the different fields within that file. If I'm losing anyone, let me know. So we're going to look for term. We're going to find everything for 2015 fall. Then we've got the condition or how you want to use it. So for this case, we're going to use exactly matches. And we're going to tell it exactly what we want that term to be. You could say begins with, and then you could say 2015, and it would find 2015 spring, summer, and fall. Or you could say ends with and just put in FA, and it would find all fall classes. It gives you different options here. And depending on the type of field it is, and unfortunately from here, there's not really a way that you can tell, but if it's a date field, it may give you different options, or if it's a number field, it will give you different options. It will adjust to whatever you selected to make sense. So we're going to do exactly matches, and then we've got 3 options here. So literal. That means I'm going to type in 2015 FA. And that will be what my report finds. Every time I run this report, it's going to go out and find 2015 FA. I may not want it to find 2015 FA every time I run the report. I want it to be able to move along throughout the years with me. The way we can do that is with a prompt. So you're asking the user to enter in this value here. And here we just put in whatever we want to ask the user. So what is the term? And you can select whether you want that to be a required field or not. If it's not required and they leave it blank, it just won't search for anything there. It'll find all of the terms. Yes?
Is there a way, so in this case, you obviously knew that that's the format of the data in that particular field. So if you don't know exactly what the format is, like I'm new enough here that I didn't know that 2015 FA is the code, what you would code it is. Is there a way to see what some of the sample data is? Or
The
how would you
easiest
know?
way is to not do a filter
See what's in there.
and go into columns and tell it, okay, spit out this column. Show me all of the terms, and then you'll see
See
all
what
of
they
the
are.
different formats. So SP for spring, SU for summer, FA for fall, and then the continuing ed is CE1, CE2, and CE3. So those are the different terms. But yeah, that's a great question, and if you ever come across or you want to know if there's data in a field. With Informer, we've been able to be selective as to what we put in Informer. We didn't tell it show every table in every file or field. We kind of pick and choose what we want in there. Now, sometimes we get a request, hey, can you add this field in? We add it in and it ends up being an unused field. So there are some in there that aren't used, but it's nowhere near as bad as looking at the raw database. But yeah, you can go in and just tell it to list out everything just to see what's in there. There might be some useful information. And when you hit OK on this, it wraps it all up and gives you kind of a summary of what you saw. To go back in and edit it again, we click on it and get right back to it. So maybe we want more than one. We can add multiple conditions in there. Also, if you notice the all, select all of the following, the all is underlined, meaning it's a link. We can change that so that maybe we've got several different conditions. If you're searching for a person, you could say, find me a person with the last name of this or the last name of this or first name of this.
So at least one changes it to an or search.
Yeah. And none is so that maybe you want to list everything but whatever. So it gives you some different options. Now, hopefully I don't get too crazy here and lose anyone. The next condition is a compound condition. It's going to let us group things together. So maybe we want the term that matches whatever they type in, and we want one of the following. Either subject is I don't know if any of this will make sense. I'm just picking fields at random. So here we're saying we want all of the following to be true. So the term has to match the term that they put in, and one of the two. So it doesn't have to be both of them. You can use those compound conditions to group things together. So it has to have both this and one of those. So it lets you play around a little bit there. Lets you get dangerous. Most of the time, the simple condition is going to be what you end up using. Now, sometimes the data might not live in this file. We've got the files, a lot of the files are linked between each other. For example, there's a file out there, course.sec.meeting, and that has all of the individual meeting. You might have a better.
Days, times,
Okay.
stuff like that, yeah.
All of the different times when that class will meet. So since that's a different file, we can use the select returning to jump to a linked file, gather some data, and then drop back to the file we were originally working in. So in this case, meeting times. Let me look real quick. Okay, good. So I gave an example earlier. I wanted to say, let's find all of the classes in this building. So if I'm looking through course.sections, there is no building. Actually, not that I see anyway. Oh, there it is. Sort of. Over here, let me get rid of this. Over here we have attribute, and for the most part, that's not going to make any sense to anyone. I don't ever pay attention to it, other than to see if it's a 0 or a number. When the attribute is a 0, it means that data doesn't actually live in that file. You can still use it. A lot of times it might just be easier to use that. However, it's going to run slower, because on the back side, when you tell it, show me retake cred flag, count retake cred flag. When you tell it to pull that data, it has to go out and figure out where that data lives, pull it in, maybe do some calculations. It has to do something before it hands it off to you. So these are going to take longer to process. If you can stay away from the zeros, great. If not, don't worry about it. They get used a lot. But it will speed up your report if you can stay away from them.
So is there, you said there's no data in that field? So why
Correct.
would you search for something if there's no data in it?
It doesn't live, this is the line number within this file of where that data lives. So course section add date lives on line 23. 22 is the add operator, etc. The zeros means it's going to figure it out whenever you process that data, or whenever you try and pull it, it doesn't have the data there ready. It has to go find it and figure it out. Some of them run calculations. Some of them just simply pull from another file.
Will it keep it after it ran it?
Yeah.
If you export it out, sure. But
Next time you run it, it won't show a number there, all of a sudden it'll still be a zero.
Correct. Because that's not, that data doesn't live in that file.
Okay.
It lives somewhere else. Whether it calculates it on the fly
Okay.
or whether it's in another file.
But anything that shows up in here is accessible
Yes.
from this file. It's just whether or not
Right.
it's quickly accessible.
So, and if you forget, don't worry about it. It will still run, it just will take a little bit longer. Sue, have you done much with these building locations? Are these the ones that look ugly?
Well, sometimes, one of them pulls from the code, building code, the number, and then one of them pulls from the name of the building, which we use. Now, it's hard to remember which one's which.
Well, I'm still gonna use my select returning example. So, when you do a select returning, the drop-down is gonna show you whatever links are linking to that file. So it's not gonna show you everything and make you figure out what's there. It's gonna narrow it down to whatever is there for whatever file you're working on. So I'm gonna do meetings and another simple condition inside of that block. Now, when I pull up my list of all the different fields, I get the fields for course.section.meeting because I'm finding the data in that file and I'm going to return it. So select return. In this case, I'm going to do building. Four digits, right? So building 17 is this building. Again, if you're not sure, you can.
How would you know that?
Yeah. All right. So what I've got here is I'm saying find all of the courses or all of the sections that match whatever term I put in, and I'm going to check the meetings for all of those sections and return the ones that are meeting in building 0017, fitness building. Lost anyone or everyone? All right. Sorry, this part can get kind of confusing. The other one I want to talk about is get list. If you've got, actually this is one of the things that I keep recommending to Stormy. I don't know if she's using it yet or not, but you should bring it up. Tell her, you should use a get list. More
We don't
people.
tell stories.
We'll just use a get list.
That's
I use them quite a bit. The way that this works is you can have one report, maybe, actually, you guys use one. I think Michelle Wheeler set it up, so it's been there as long as we've been on Informer. And what it does is there's a few of them, but one of them pulls a get list or pulls a report of all the students in a term. And actually it's for Web Advisor. It grabs a list of everyone that needs a Web Advisor account and for example, if you wanted to pull a list of all students in 2015 FA, once you've got that list, you can, later on I'll show you how to save a list, but you can save that list, and then for your reports, you don't have to say, show me all of the students from 2015 FA that are still attending. You don't have to go through all of that select criteria. You say, get that list. And it grabs that list of students, and you can work straight from that. Yes?
Does the get list static or dynamic?
Static. It keeps those IDs. Now, if it's a temporary, if you're only going to use it within that semester, let's say, it doesn't matter too much what you name it. I would put your initials at the end, dot, ABC or NEC or whatever, just so that somebody else doesn't use that same name and you end up tripping over each other. If you put your initials, chances are you're okay. If it's going to be something that you want to keep long-term, then put .perm at the end to make it permanent. That lets Jesse know when he does a cleanup of that file. Periodically, he'll go in and any saved list out there that hasn't been updated in the last 6 months or a year, I don't remember how frequently he does it, he clears them out. Any of them that have .perm at the end, he keeps. So those are the ones he knows need to stick around. So, for example, if you wanted to save the save list of students, put .perm at the end, and then 3 years down the road, if you wanted to go back and say, show me all of the students from 2015 FA, you can pull that list.
It actually saves the data or it saves the query?
It saves the ID, like the student ID or whatever file you're working in, but it saves the data.
It saves the data. And then can you run it again?
Sure. If you
And
need
to update it.
If you need to update it, you just run it again, resave that list to that same name, and it overwrites it. The saved list actually lives in the system. The report is just here in Informer.
Okay.
So you're saying, when you do a save list, you're saying that list that we just pulled
Yeah.
for all of these students or all of these courses or whatever, hang on to that. I'm going to come back and look at that later. So it lets us return to that. Incredibly useful. Especially if you've got a report that you're pulling off, or several reports, you're pulling off of the same data every time. One report to generate that list, and then all of your other reports can pull all of that, and they don't have to refilter everything. I know in financial aid, I don't know what the reports look like now, but David Bowman showed me some of his, and they had like 5 or 6 reports in a row. One would run, save a list, the next one would pick it up, and it would jump from report to report. So he could pick up at different stages. Different uses. Any questions on filters? That's probably the bulk of Informer. Is that one right there. So now that we've got our data, of course I didn't save it. Okay, make sure you hit save. Of course I'll cheat. I already had it created. Not the same one. So I did. When I was getting ready for what I wanted to talk about, I played around. Luckily I had it up. So I didn't do a term search. All I did was say, find everything in building 1, room 214. So Wilkinson 214. A little bit different than what we had prepared. I am, however, going to put that term back in. Save. All right. So for the columns, this is going to be the output. So we've got our list of sections. Now we need to know what it needs to give us. So add fields lets you add different fields. Funny how that works. And it's going to be the same list that we saw a minute ago when we were selecting our filter. Here we can come in, and I've actually already got a few. So I've got the course name, which name may throw some people, but in this case it's going to be CTI 140, MAT 170, and then the title is going to be what most people would think the name would have been. The more user-friendly. And then I've also got the term out here. Now, we mentioned before about how different files can be linked together. Over here, it shows us what file we're working out of. If we click that plus, it will show us all of the files that are linked to this file. Sue brought up a good point. The building number. I'm searching for building 0001. Before I was looking for 0017. If you export that out, some people may know what those building numbers are. If you get to another campus, building 33 or 42, if you're not used to seeing those, who knows what they are? Of course, building 42 is building 42. But we can say, show me the buildings. So we grab that linked. Do you know which of these it is?
You're looking for the name of the building?
Yeah.
I don't think it's description. I don't know. Well, maybe.
But all,
Kind of.
There it is.
yeah.
And this data isn't necessarily what you'll end up seeing when you run the report. It's just showing you an example of what's out there. For example, I told it to pull everything in the Wilkinson building. So we should only see Wilkinson right here when we run our report. But it doesn't want to bog itself down by running the report already. So it just shows an example. If you click on these, if you plan on maybe exporting them out to an Excel document or PDF, you may want to pretty this up some. So if you click on the headers of your rows, down here at the bottom, you've got some fields you can edit. The first one here, the column header, that's just going to be what shows up in that field. You can also change whether maybe you want that column bold. entered, right aligned, different options. This is a neat one. If you do color, colon, and then a name of a color, it'll change that column to that color.
Sorting, if you wanted to sort by a
So-
particular field.
All right, so I'll go ahead and make sure I don't have anything else here. I'll come back to that one in just a moment. So if you added your columns here, maybe I wanted the term up top. So when you're first looking through your list, you don't have to worry about how it's laid out. Just say, okay, I know I need this field, this field, this field, this field. And once you've got all the fields you want, then you can go back in, reorder them, make some of them bold, fix the headers, pretty it up. So there's one of the other options here is sort. And it gives you a drop down of maybe I want course name sorted, and then I want the term sorted. So that lets you sort. Yeah, feel free to look through the different options here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but play with it. Create a report, break it, figure out how you broke it or why you broke it. Something other than it's Monty's fault, he told me to play. All right, so once we have our report completed, this data tab up here is how we run it. Back at the beginning, when we were looking at the overview of that first page we were in, it had the launch button. The launch button takes you to the data tab. Now, normally just clicking on the data tab would run your report. It would go ahead and start running it. However, we told it we want a term. So it's not going to run it until I type something in. Ignore case. By default, it checks it. For things like names, if you're searching for somebody's name, leave ignore case turned on. But for terms, terms are always, in the system, they will always be capitalized. The last two characters are going to be capitalized. So if you uncheck that, it's going to run a little bit faster. Again, like the last one, if you forget about it, don't worry about it. Just trying to give some tips on how to speed up your reports. Because some of the reports, some of Stormy's reports, I've seen take half an hour to run. They are beasts, depending on the type of data that you're pulling. So once you've typed in whatever you need, launch report. Yay, it ran. So here I've got, okay. What's that?
So you chose Wilkinson, but there's one that says distance.
It may be hybrid or web assistant.
Yeah, it's in the background, it'll be listed. I displayed a different field than the one I did my filter on. So this is just
That's not the filter.
a
that's just-
description.
Yeah.
If I look at the building
the
number,
code, that's what it would be.
yeah. But it's probably like what they said, it's a hybrid or it meets park distance, park Wilkinson, something along those lines. Just like before, we can reorder these columns after you've run it. It's not going to save the reorder that you did, but while you're looking at it here, if you wanted to always change term to be at the very beginning or at the very end, go back and edit your columns when you're editing the report and make the change there, then it will stay. You can also do a quick search. So I've only got 13, so it's not much to search for. So I can quickly find that distance one. You can also, you've got some aggregate options. None of the fields I put on here were number or dollar fields, so I don't have a lot to choose from. All I can do is count. I could say count, and I'm going to group, so I can drag. Notice this says drag columns here to group, so I'm going to drag the course name up to here, and it groups all of those for me. And since I had the count turned on, I've got one item for ACC 120, 8 CIS 110, and 4 CIS 111. Again, play around with it. If you see something that says drag or something that looks like if you click on it, it'll do something, click on it, see what happens. When it breaks, just call me. I'm fairly certain nobody's gonna break it as bad as Stormy has. And if it ever, you try and run a report and the whole system just won't do anything, chances are it was her. Because she uses it the most. Not to say she's doing anything wrong, but she uses it a lot and runs some big reports. So I'll pick on her. All right. Export. And we're running out of time, I apologize. So once you've got your, I'm going to change it back to remove. You've got a little button here that removes the grouping. And I'll undo my aggregate. So in the top right-hand corner, you've got export results, and it will show you some different options for exporting that out. If you notice the very last one, save list. So that's how you would run a report and then save the list. If you select that one, it just asks for whatever name it is. Make sure it's all caps.
This is where you said name dot your initials or dot perm.
Yeah, or your initial something dot your initials dot perm or
So where is it saving this to?
in the database.
In the database?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's
Yeah,
not,
you give it a name, hit export, and that box goes away and it's sitting there staring at you again. It doesn't look like anything happened, it's saving it in the background.
okay.
And then you use get list to go and
Correct.
you have to remember the name.
Yes. So what I would do is if you're going to be working on a lot of these,